I would like to welcome you all to part 2 of my documented trip down to Mateo, North Carolina. This is a festival park at Roanoke Island, and very historic trip here. In the late 1500s, the first English colonizers to come to the Americas came to Roanoke Island, and they basically took it over from the Indians. Basically, we're just gonna be honest, like stole it from the Indians. It wasn't never lost. They snatched it from the Indians. But before I go on with that story, right here, so part 1 you seen, we were inside at Festival Park, the museum. And I showed you inside the museum. Now we're outside the museum, and this is Indian town, and there's interactive stations as well, like it was interactive stations on part 1 inside the museum. This is the second part outside the museum, and there are interactive stations where you can touch some of these buttons here, and it'll let you hear the sounds of some of the wildlife that's here on the island, and then at the Outterbanks period. And it's great for the kids. One thing, this was a historic trip, and it's great. Bring your kids. Before I go on, it's $11 for adults, and it's $8 for the youth from the ages of 3 to 17, and from 2 and under, it's free. So it's great. Bring your kids, and also if you go to roanokeisland.com and check out the ticket prices and times and things of that nature. You can also scroll down on that website and get a coupon, and you can get $1 off for each ticket that you purchase as well. So that's awesome. That's great as well. It's a great place to come see. It's history, and it's always great for the kids, and especially when they make it interactive and they encourage you, the children, the people, to get involved and enjoy yourself. So right here, this is an area here where this Indian town. So it's just showing you how the Indian lived, how they survived, what they made their homes out of, and everything. So we're also coming up on right here. Once the camera pans around again, right here is this home right here is the home of the leader, and then the leader had the biggest home. And once again, on Roanoke Island, you had the 2 Indian tribes that were there in Mateo, North Carolina, is the Mateo tribe and the Wachis tribe. So this would be the Mateo leaders home here, or it could have been the Wachis home. But this is basically what the leaders home would be. It would be large. This also had a 1-bedroom in here, as you will see. And there are also all interactive stations inside of this leader's home here. You see different rattles and things that they may have used to help make their food and what they ate off of. They use a lot of copper and metal. You also have some of the animal fur hanging, you will see. But yeah. Interesting. So as you see, it's just dirt floor. And some of the animal fur there that they may use for clothing, maybe to use actually just tell you, like the words, how we use, let's say, dare, and actually translate it and how they may have said, how the Native American Indians may have used and pronounced that same word. So those interactive stations are throughout the leader's home here. You know, like birds. Some of the buttons I was actually touching, and then they just, I don't know, they weren't working. And then some of them were, you know. So that's why you're not hearing anything. But I was actually pushing some. One of them did work, but for the most part, I was pushing some of them. Yeah. So once again, like this was, you know, the late 1500s, like 1585, around that time. The first English settlers / colonizers to come to the country, to the United States, they came to Roanoke Island. The Native American Indians were already there. And as you will see later on, as I go on in the video, I'm going to drop some fun facts for you here. And you will see that down in the Outterbanks of North Carolina, there's a lot of islands. You have to cross over bridges to get to other parts, you know. And a lot of the islands and towns are named after Indian tribes. Manteo, North Carolina, where Roanoke Island is inside of, that's one of the Indian tribes. Wanchese is one of the Indian tribes. You have Kitty Hawk, Corolla. If they're not named after a tribe, they're inspired by the tribes. You know, it had something to do with it. So the Native Americans were very heavily populated in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So, you know, when the first English colonizers to come, you know, to the country, they didn't just come here and there was just no one there. It's a tale that they like to say, like, you know, it's a story that they tell how at one point, you know, when the Native Americans fought with the English colonizers, that all of a sudden, one day, no one was here. You know, one day one of the generals come back and there's no one here. There's no one there at Roanoke Island. Like, it was just completely deserted. Which we gotta believe that, you know, to be honest, that's not true. You know, the Native Americans were there. They've been there. They were heavily populated, and we know that once the English colonizers came in, they seen how plentiful the land was. The Indians showed them how to hunt, how to survive, and they just seen, you know, land. They wanted it. So you have to be honest and real to know that they had to just wipe out the Indian tribes, you know, push them out, you know. And if you ever heard of the story, Trail of Tears, then you would know that, you know, they didn't just, no one just woke up the next day and everyone's gone. You know, this was their land. This was they were here, you know. So what you're seeing right here is the circle, where they would do the tribal dancing in Native American. Yeah. The dance circle is what they call it here. So what we just seen and everything, that's what this is right here, the dance circle. Yeah. And right here, as we coming up on, you see another, the building, a longhouse is what they call it. And they did some, they did quite a few things inside of this longhouse as well. They build and create things, whether for hunting, eating, whatever, you know. This was pretty much, if you want to say, this was like a workhouse. And you know, the Native American, the Indians, they love to, you know, they lived off the land, you know. So they used the resources of the land for everything that they needed, you know. So this was, you know, the Outer Banks being there, you know. Of course, it wasn't called the Outer Banks then, but this area was very, very rich for them. So many things here, you know, from the sea, from the fish and everything, and the wildlife, you know, to the trees, to the soil, to the leaves. It was very plentiful for them, and you know, you can see why. And you know, they used every resource, all the resources they had. Excuse my fingers right there. It was, you know, my fingers every now and then was getting in the way of me recording. Yep. So now we're gonna exit here, and we're gonna head on down to the English settlement. Just that way. We'll go that way in a second. Just that way over a bridge there. There's the sailboat, the Elizabeth II. That was the name of the boat that the English colonizers came to America on. We'll go that way in a second. But right now we're going to well, they call it the early settlement. So we're heading there now. But I often find, you know, we have to be honest about, you know, it's all about history, you know, and we have to be honest that when we talk about, you know, those times, you know, it was often portrayed as, you know, like as if the Indians were just like hanging around, and you know, these English settlers just come and they found. You can't find anything that's not lost, you know. And you know, I often, you know, going around and going through the different sections here, from the Indian town to the early settlement town or whatever, here outside the Festival Park Museum, I can only think and just, you know, my mind just wondering, and I'm like, wow, how can we need to see more representation of the Native Americans here. Not to knock and take away, you know, none of the history at all. So we have to be more, you know, I'm like, we need to see more representation of the Native American, their way of life here, because this was their land. Once again, my fingers got in the way. So we're coming up on the early settlement Here in this section, they're building and making things, and they're utilizing the land as well. But we also have to remember again, everything that the English settlers come to this country and started to do, they learned from the Native American Indians. They learned how to survive and hunt from the Native Americans. This was foreign land to them. The Indians knew the whole landscape. And we're not just talking here. When we talk history, we're talking across the whole United States. The Native Americans were here. They know the land. They lived off the land. They used the resources of the land. And let's be honest, the Native Americans are very spiritual people as well. Which I'll talk more on that later. Well, I'll go a little deeper on that later.
To 100 legs in a day. They make about 4 pounds a year. That's about $5 or so American before that wonderful inflation you're all enjoying. Once you become a master, you'll have your own apprentice. You'll make about 6 pounds a year. Plus, we're a little bit smart. We know not to do some things, like keep going past the piece of thing you're cutting. There's nothing past the thing you're cutting but you, so don't go past the thing you're cutting, right? Also, pay attention to the whole blade,
So
not just the part touching
what he's
the wood.
making there.
If I only look at the part touching the wood, that's a lot of blade.
Is
so
like
if I get
wooden
distracted,
nails to hold the house together. And they would carve them and then stick them in mud and let them cure. And then they would, So now we're heading over the bridge here. This is still part of the Festival Park Museum. Everything outside is still part of the Festival Park Museum. This is all in your fee to get into the park, to see the inside, the museum, and watch the movie about the Native American Indians and the first English settlers. There's a short film about that. And then you come outside and you see Indian Town and the early settlement, and then the boat here, the Elizabeth II. And you see the views here. It's real picturesque here in Mateo, North Carolina, Roanoke Island. Yeah.
Wow. Things you need to access quickly if you need to mend a sail or fix a rope or something like that.
Wow, how you doing?
Good, thanks. You're free to go anywhere not blocked by rope or netting.
Okay. Wow.
50 folks. How would that break down in terms of like settlers and?
Maybe a handful more settlers than sailors. And it's working as a regular cargo vessel. It's still 12 to 15 days. But they probably would have had a few extra sailors on board just for transport. 20 probably, 30 for the southern. So somewhere in the we don't know exactly who was on which ships.
Yeah.
But we do know that the investors recommended loading the ships first per ton of cargo, and this can carry 50 tons. We know it's listed as a 50-ton vessel, so that would be the maximum number of people you have on the ship.
Wow.
Here, right down here, you are running down staff. So you don't steer from up there.
Wow.
The person up here decides the course and then
That's
relays
crazy.
the compass heading down to the helmsman.
That's crazy.
Oh, cool.
Our ship
Wow.
is so old, it's before we used wheels for steering. Wait, where's
Wow.
right down there. That little room right there. And the captain's cabin is down there also.
Oh, I'll get out the way. Wow.
So the steering was it? So it was pretty precise in terms of someone was giving the person taking the compass heading was giving that the person on the sorry, what's it called again?
Whip staff. Whip staff for the steering wheel. They have a compass down here, and then the actual navigation calculations.
How are you
Wow,
today?
how you doing?
Good.
Wow.
This is where they come to get out of the weather and sleep on the floor where you're walking.
Oh yeah, it's cool down
There's
here.
there's some beds back there for officers. Everybody else on the floor. There's
Wow.
another deck under us for cargo also.
Under here?
Another full deck. Yep.
Wow. Oh, so they would go here.
Right.
Wow.
But cargo and supplies down there.
Wow. Wow.
We're glad you came to see it. You ready to sign up and join the crew?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow. Oh wow. That's amazing.
Outterbanks itself, so don't say that it's mine.
Oh, but the
Hi
Spanish,
everyone, welcome. When you go below Rob's there, so you can show you around.
the Spanish were active up and down.
Right, sailing from their holdings in Puerto Rico back to Spain. They were kind of moving past the coast, but we thought they would build it inside.
This is crazy. It's crazy. Let me move my hand out the way, folks. It's an amazing view, though. Up here on Elizabethton.
Yes, so you've got
The boat that the first English settlers coming to America came in on and landed here in Roanoke Island.
people like Sir Francis Drake have been attacking Spanish and stealing his.
Excuse my hand, y'all.
So it's not
This is what happens when you're doing
maybe so much as it's
your own
a
documentary.
enterprise because you have this thing. So we use the term privateering for this. That's not a term in Elizabethan that we call it, but that's what we use now, privateering.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that will conclude the tour of the Roanoke Island and the Lost Colony. So we just finished it, going through the English settlement town, Indian town, the Elizabethan, the boat. You see, oh, turn the screen around, see it in the background there. We just finished that there. So yeah, like I said, we're in Roanoke Island. That is down in the Outterbanks of North Carolina. Manio, that's the town that the neighboring town that's next door to Roanoke Island. And if you ever in the Outterbanks, you should come check it out if you have never been. It's pretty cool. It's great for the kids. A lot of interactive things you can do. They have the museum, and you can go around and, you know, they encourage you to touch a lot of the interactive stations they have there. And Roanoke Island is a cool kind of town, you know. Like I said, Roanoke Island is where the first English settlers came, and Native Americans were here. And there's also like what I want to say, like folklore, whatever, where, hold on folks, there's also like this folklore, like people just got missing, like all of a sudden one day it was no one here, no one knew where anyone was at. It's like wiped out. So but yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I said, it's great for the kids. I believe, if I'm not mistaken again, to come here to the Roanoke Island Lost Colony to do that tour. Let me get my hand off of here, folks. It's 18 for adults, 11 for kids that are under 11. You can also go to their website. I'm going the wrong way. No, I'm not. You can also go to the website and get $1 off each ticket, you know, as well. So check it out. I think it'll be cool for you and your family, and if you're into the history. And But that's my time, folks. Hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm gonna find some more things to get into for the day. That's it. I'm out.